Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, April 20th, 420 edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. As always, guys, I really do hope you're well. It's been over a month of this quarantine, and it definitely doesn't get any easier. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going stir crazy. Like I said last week, what I recommend for fans to do is just go back on Fight Pass and watch as many UFC fights as you can. Old UFC fights, old Pride fights, old Strikeforce fights, WEC, all those old promotions. That's what I would do. You know, if you're looking for something to do, because I know that things are not easy these days, and definitely the boredom sets in for a lot of people. So that's what my recommendation would be. Personally, I'm watching some TV shows, catching up on some shows that I haven't watched over the last probably 10 years since I've been doing this. I've been so busy with MMA that I missed out on a lot of other stuff, so I'm doing that right now. But yeah, I'm staying safe, still social distancing, and hopefully you guys are as well. Of course, this segues nicely into my first point here because I want to talk about a few different things today, but I'm going to start with Dana White because Dana White held a coronavirus roundtable with the UFC fighters last week where they were basically given 25 minutes on a call with Dana to ask any question they had about the coronavirus. MMA Junkie was able to get some cliff notes. Noel King there was able to do that, and I want to just talk about them right now. So let's get right into them. First point is fighters don't have to fight if they don't feel safe. So that's definitely an olive branch, I guess, from Dana White in some ways to extend that to the fighters. But the problem is we all know that MMA fighters and UFC fighters especially, they have to fight to get paid. So yes, you know, you'll have a fighter like Jacare Souza who's been vocal about the fact that he is frightened to fight. However, he's been booked for that UFC 249 and the new UFC 250 card because he needs money to pay off his house. So, yes, it's nice that Dana White's extended this to the fighters saying, hey, we're not going to penalize you guys if you're declining fights at this time, which makes sense because, I mean, it's a very dicey time right now. But at the same time, if you need money, if you got to pay your bills, you're going to take a fight if you're offered it. So it does sound nice, but at the same time, it doesn't help fighters that are struggling to pay their rent at the moment. Next point here, and I think I talked about this last week, Dana White's been tasked with being part of Donald Trump's economic recovery task force. So he'll be part of that group with Vince McMahon, Mark Cuban, Adam Silva, Roger Goodell, a bunch of like major league commissioners, like from all the big sports. So that's cool for Dana to be part of that. I mean, obviously we know Trump and Dana are pretty close. Dana's a pretty successful businessman. You can say what you want about the guy. He definitely knows how to run a company and make a profit. So it does make sense that Trump would ask him to do that. But yeah, I know some fans have kind of, taking this as a shot, use it as an opportunity to take a shot at Dana and take more shots at Trump. I know there's a lot going on in the States right now. And definitely this is not the right time, I guess, for people taking shots. Hopefully these guys can help out the country get back to normal because it seems like Trump, from what I've heard, wants the economy to start getting up again soon. So hopefully everything's okay for all my American listeners down there. I know it's not easy right now, guys, but hopefully things do get better. And if Dana's going to be part of this, hopefully it does help a lot. Next point, featured UFC locations are going to be kept a secret. This is not really a surprise because Dana White's been adamant this whole time. Like, I don't want to tell these media members they're a bunch of creeps, like they're weenies, like they're wieners, whiners, whatever you called them. So yeah, no surprise there. And we know what happened last time. Once that card leak that was going to take place in Tattoo Palace, and Jeff Sherwood actually broke the news of that originally. Jeff Sherwood used to own Sherdog.com. He doesn't own it anymore. But obviously a long-time veteran in the sport. He has tons of ties to local community. I think he is actually from close by. So once he broke that news and once it got to the bigger media like the New York Times, then things actually started to move in a negative direction for the UFC. I think up until that point, it seemed like that event was going to happen. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. All right, next up, meeting with Nevada's governor. Yeah, that's another point there. Dana White, obviously, he wants the fights to happen back in Vegas, as we all know. UFC Apex is a place where he wants to have some fights, so he obviously owns that building. It does make sense that they would do fights there first because they don't have to have fans, obviously, and they can run their own production, but we'll see what happens. Fighters who had fights that were canceled will get first dibs at new belts, so that does make sense as well. So fighters that were supposed to fight like UFC London, Portland, UFC 249, these kind of cards that were just scrapped, they should get the first dibs at fights. That makes sense. But the problem with this is obviously it's going to push back the calendar for the rest of the year. So guys that were supposed to fight in, for instance, May will probably have to fight in like July now, which means that fighters supposed to fight in July will probably have to fight in September. So it definitely screws things up. But the one thing that the UFC could do, and what we're hearing obviously, is that they might do like 2 or 3 events a week to catch up, which makes a lot of sense as well. Dana White said in the roundtable, if fighters are struggling, please reach out to the promotion. I don't know what that's going to do. I mean, here's the one thing I'll say about this is, and I'm going to get to the other points in a second, but there's nothing here that says we're going to give you guys some money to get by. It doesn't say that ever. Like, so to me, like, that's the one thing that fighters wanted to hear. They wanted to hear, hey, we're going to get some money from you guys. And he hasn't said anything about that. The only fight card that for sure paid the fighters at least their show money is the UFC London card. That's the only one. That was the one that was canceled on like severe short notice. So I don't know. Like, I mean, the other fight cards, I guess the UFC's trying to get those guys fights quickly, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. Someone asked if they would do catch weights. Dana White said probably not, because the problem with catch weights according to Dana is like the fights don't have as much meaning, which makes sense to me as well. But at the same time, the problem right now is fighters are having a hard time cutting weight because first off, their training camp is severely compromised, and second off, when fighters cut weight, their immune system is weakened, so they're more prone to catching something, which is scary for sure. And not only that, but the sauna facilities at wherever this event's going to be held, if there is an event, that's going to be compromised too. I mean, can you have multiple people in the sauna at the same time? Probably not, right? So how's that going to work? There's a lot of moving parts here. But yeah, catch weights would have been somewhat of a solution, but at the same time, UFC, they just don't like catch weights. Like, I can't remember the last time they did it like on purpose. It's been a while. Probably like 10 years. So they actually did catch weights at like the Rich Franklin Vitor Belfort fight. I think that was at the Franklin weight of 195, if I'm not mistaken. Like something like that. They don't really do that too often anymore. Just getting back to some other points here. Lack of cornerman access could result in fighters making tough decisions. So yeah, in that case, they'll probably only have to be able to bring like one person to their fight, which is definitely something else that fighters are not used to as well. And again, it's going to be like a small limit of people in the facility. So that's something that's not a surprise, but it's going to be tough. Like if fighters are used to having 2 specific cornermen and they have to choose one, that's not easy at all. American fighters will be eligible to compete at Fight Island. That's pretty cool. And also Fight Island's been trademarked, or the trademark's been in motion, I guess. That's cool because we've heard that Americans would fight in the States and then international fighters would fight in the Fight Island, but obviously Dana White says that American fighters can compete at Fight Island too, which is pretty cool if that happens. I mean, there's a lot of people thinking now that Dana White's just trolling. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say, right? Like, I'd like to think that he's being honest, but I mean, he's not usually the most honest guy about stuff like this. International Fight Week in July is very doubtful. That's probably not going to happen, which sucks. I know a lot of people are always looking to forward to going to Vegas in July because it's always a big card. And I think this year, a lot of people were looking forward to seeing Masvidal Usman. That would have been a good fight. Maybe John Jones would be in that card against Reyes or Blachowicz, and maybe Cormier would have fought Miocic again. That's not going to happen, at least in July. There could be an international fight week somewhere, but I just don't see how that makes sense. Like, they like doing it in Vegas. Why would they move it to like a small town somewhere? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. And even if they do it at the Apex, the card, it doesn't make sense to do international fight week anymore because you can't have like an expo. You can't have people getting close together. Probably not anyways in July. Medical staff and hospitals are ready for every event if the UFC comes back. Goal is for every Saturday to have a UFC event, so that's not a surprise at all. I mean, we all know that's going to happen. And something about meals here. UFC trifecta meals at the PI are on hold, but the issue will be fixed soon. So I guess fighters that were hoping to get some food are not going to be able to get some soon. So yeah, I mean, Dana White definitely gave an update. But again, the one thing I'm sure fighters are asking is about money, and there doesn't seem to be anything here that says we're going to pay fighters what they want, which is definitely scary. I mean, if you're struggling to pay rent right now and your job is to fight in the UFC and there's no fights, like that's not good. I look at other sports. I follow the other sports, and like for instance, MLB, they're going to pay like their players through May, I believe. Same with the NBA. They're paying these guys for another month. They haven't played a game in over a month now, so they're still getting paid, and they get paid a lot more money. Like, again, bench warmers in those big major league sports are getting paid, $500,000, $1 million, whereas UFC fighters, you're not making anything. And if you're at the bottom of the card making 10 and 10, you're really in trouble right now. Especially like, just say you're making 10 and 10. You're like a guy in the first fight of the night on a fight night card, and your second job is to be a trainer or something, or a coach. You're not making any money right now, so it's very, very tough. Breaking news: he doesn't like Dana White, obviously. Yeah, no worries, man. I mean, obviously Dana White is as you say, a greedy billionaire, which I don't know if he's a billionaire, but the other guys are obviously billionaires. Definitely, he's a greedy guy, but again, this is no surprise that Trump's going to have him on his little task force because they're very good friends, and we all know that. All right, getting back to the fights here, UFC 249 obviously was canceled, but Tony Ferguson, the madman he is, continued to cut weight, and he made 155, posted a video about it. My friend James Lynch actually interviewed Tony, I think, after the weight cut, so I'm not sure if that interview's out yet, but I want to check it out whenever I can, so you guys could too. Yeah, I mean, the guy's a madman, he's crazy, and I know that he asked Gaethje to cut the weight too. Gaethje's like, no thanks. Like, it's nuts. You know what, though? Like, I'll say this. It is like kind of nuts, but at the same time, he wanted to like prepare his body for that weight cut, so he was already cutting the weight, and then he ended up doing it. So it does seem nuts, but he was going to cut the weight anyway. So he's probably like, I might as well just get through this and do the test weight cut. It is still crazy for sure. He didn't get paid for that weight cut, which is obviously something that no fighter wants to do. But at the same time, it's part of his routine for that fight week. So I can see why he did it. It is nuts, don't get me wrong, but I can see why he did it. Switching gears here, Paulo Costa did an interview with a Brazilian outlet, AG Fight, and he talked about brain damage in MMA, which actually is a really interesting interview. Paulo Costa was part of this like little panel of a couple Brazilian journalists and fighters, and he was asking about brain damage and basically said that, it's a fact of the sport, and unfortunately, we have to spar to prepare for our fights, and we do take blows to the head. He basically said, he's very careful in sparring. He tries not to get hit in the head. But he also said that he is worried about the future. He doesn't know what's going to hold for his brain and other fighters' brains. And he said that he would be willing to donate his brain to research. Obviously, when he's dead, I don't think they can do it before that. This is good. I mean, we need guys like this to step up and say, hey, when my career's over, when I'm not here anymore, when my life's over, I'm going to donate my brain for research, it's just good to hear, because you see a lot of like hockey players that have passed away, they've donated their brains for CT, or the families have, and we've learned a lot about brain damage in those sports, for instance, and football as well. So this is actually pretty cool that Costa would say that. We all love MMA, guys. It's the best sport in the world. But the problem with the sport is it's so new that we don't know the effects of the damage these guys are taking down the road. A guy like Diego Sanchez, a guy like Chuck Liddell, what's he going to look like in 20 years? We don't know, because the sport's so new. We can only guess, and we can only guess it's not going to look too good. So when these guys' careers are over and when they're in their older days and they pass away, it would be good for some of these guys and their families to donate their brains for research. And obviously Costa's already pledged that. He also said he's going to retire at age 36. So he wants to retire at a young age. And again, you got to respect that. It's crazy, right? I think he's 28 or 29 right now, but he realizes how much damage the sport takes and how it doesn't really favor older fighters. So I got to respect what he was saying. I know a lot of people don't like Paulo because he's a very brash guy. A lot of people think he takes steroids and everything, but the guy definitely, he's not as dumb as he looks. I'll say that. People call him a dummy because Adesanya said all those comments about him and stuff. The guy's not dumb. He's a pretty actually intelligent guy. I definitely urge you guys to check that out. I have it over at bjpen.com if you want to read some quotes from it. Anderson Silva, another Brazilian, he's a Brazilian legend. I wouldn't say Costa's a legend, but anyways, a Brazilian fighter, Anderson Silva. He says in a new interview with the UFC, he actually wanted to retire in 2012 before he fought Chris Weidman. So this was after the Stephan Bonner fights. And that was at UFC 153 in Brazil. At UFC 154 in Montreal, I was there for that fight. Carlos Condit fought GSP. GSP came back after an ACL tear. He beat Carlos Condit. In the crowd that night was Anderson Silva. And it seemed like they were going to set up a fight. They had him on the Jumbotron. I think he did the whole thing. The fight never happened. But I think that was his goal for that night, to get that fight with GSP. It never happened. Well, in a new interview, he says that he was planning on retiring. He told the UFC he didn't want to fight anymore. He said that he wanted to spend more time with his family. This was 8 years ago, believe it or not. But the UFC, according to Anderson Silva, he says they bribed him and bought him a Bentley, basically saying, hey, let's fight one more time. We'll take care of you. So he decided to fight one more time. He fought Chris Weidman at UFC 162 in July 2013. He got knocked out. And the problem with this was, he said, he couldn't retire off a loss. He wanted to fight one more time to get a win and retire off a win. So he fought Chris Weidman again, broke his leg, and we know the story from then. I mean, this guy, I don't want to say he's tarnished his legacy in the last few years, but I mean, in many ways he has, because first off, he tested positive for PEDs. I mean, that's always going to hurt someone's legacy. Before that, he had been like the poster boy of not being on PEDs, and he'd been the poster boy being like a smaller guy almost, beating bigger guys, like when he fought 205 against guys like Bonner. But since the Chris Weidman fight, the first one, he has 1-6 and 1 no contest. The one win over Derek Brunson, he should have lost that fight. And then no contest against Nick Diaz, that was a win for him. So I guess we can count that as a win, but really should be 1-7. Because, like, that's not good, you know. So he's got the issue now that he doesn't want to retire off a loss, but he keeps losing. So it's a very dicey situation for Anderson Silva. He's also 45 now. The last time he fought, I was there for this fight. Last May, he fought Jerry Cannonier. He broke his leg in that fight. Or he didn't break his leg. I don't know what happened, but he got injured. He hasn't fought since. I don't know, guys. I don't know what to say about Anderson Silva. I mean, the guy, he definitely is one of the greatest fighters of all time. You know, this weekend there was a Michael Jordan documentary. A lot of people were asking, like, who's the Michael Jordan MMA? A lot of people were saying Anderson Silva, for sure. But, I mean, I don't remember Michael Jordan had a stretch where he kept losing like this. I know he went to the Wizards at the end of his career, but his numbers were still good. With Anderson Silva, I mean, nothing's good about these results. They really aren't. I mean, he did have a few fight of the nights in there, so let's be fair there. And he's only lost to elite guys, but at the same time, he's losing a lot of fights. Had he retired after Stephan Bonner, he would have been 33-4. Now he's 34-10 and 1 no contest. That's a big difference. Frank Mir, he has been released by Bellator, and he says he's returning, considering a return to the commentary booth. Also, he's considering a return to fighting. So he mentioned, as far as fighting goes, he mentioned KSW. He said a fight against Mariusz Pudzianowski is a fight that interests him. That would be a fun fight for sure for a guy like Frank Mir at this point in his career. He's in his 40s. Puds is like in his 40s for sure. Two big guys. And I don't really know what their drug testing rules are. Let's be honest here. I have no idea. KSW is a great promotion, though. But, you know, a guy like Puds has been accused of taking stuff his whole career. And obviously Frank got caught too. So who knows what's going to happen if those guys fight in that promotion. But, yeah, I mean, KSW is a good promotion. It's solid. So if he wants to go there, fair enough. He also mentioned Ryzen as a possible promotion to go to. That'd be interesting as well. But the thing that I found most interesting was he wants to return to commentary. And when this story came out, I was just reading the comments. I wanted to see what fans were saying. A lot of fans are like, this is good, because they were like me, and they remember Frank Mir in the WEC. He was a fantastic commentator in the WEC. If you want, go back and watch those WEC fights where Frank commentated. He's great. He really is good. Very knowledgeable, well-spoken. He obviously has a podcast now with Richard Hunter. Richard Hunter was on the old Pardon Shaw podcast with me and James years ago. Richard is one of the better journalists, actually. He lives in Vegas. Him and Frank got their podcast, and Frank breaks a lot of news there. So Frank's great, and he's great behind the mic. But he really is good at commentary. So a lot of the fans were like, yeah, this is great. Some were like, no, I don't want to see this Frank Mir commentary. I don't think these people have seen Frank Mir doing the WEC fights. Like, he was really good. So this makes sense to me. I think you should come back to the UFC and do it. There was some political situation, I believe, like behind the scenes or something. Don't remember what happened, but Frank was not able to do the fights in the UFC. But I think at this point, 10 years later, come on, they got to bring him back. He's great, and he's so much better than a guy like Dominic Cruz. So much better, guys. Seriously. Frank Mir's one of the top guys. Right now, probably the top guy, I guess, is DC or Bisping. I think they're great. Felder's good. Not a fan of Cruz. I don't like his commentary style. I feel like his scorecards are always out of whack. I don't know. I just don't agree with this commentary. Frank Mir, though, I think would be a welcome addition to the UFC broadcast team personally. So hopefully they bring him back. If not, I think Bellator would be a good spot for him too. If they want to have him in Bellator, obviously Big John is their color commentator. They have usually it's Goldberg or Moro and then Big John. They could mix in Frank Mir too. So I think Bellator is not out of the mix yet. That'd be a good spot for him too. But I personally, selfishly, I want to see him in the UFC because I actually do believe Frank Mir is one of the better commentators in the sport. I think it'd be great for the UFC to bring him back. Last thing here, Frankie Edgar called out Aljamain Sterling. So these guys were supposed to fight at UFC 244. Sterling had like wrist surgery, and he's been out since then. It's obviously April now, so it's been almost 6 months. That was in November. Frankie Edgar still wants to fight Sterling. He still hasn't made his bantamweight debut. He's supposed to fight Sterling, and then he's supposed to fight Corey Sandhagen in January. That fight didn't happen. Sandhagen never fought. Sandhagen hasn't fought in forever either, so I gotta feel bad for that guy. But yeah, Frankie wants to fight Sterling. And then Sterling now responded and said he wants to fight Tuesday. Basically said like when and where. So if this is a fight that seems like it's going to happen. I'd like to see the fight. I think it does make a little bit of sense here. Frankie Edgar, he is an aging legend, and yes, he hasn't fought at bantamweight yet. And I know Sterling's a top 5 guy. The problem with Sterling is, unfortunately, he's behind guys like Dominic Cruz and Jose Aldo right now, even though he shouldn't be, because like you look at his resume lately, it's so much better than those guys. But the UFC really wants to do this Henry Cejudo super fight with these legends. That's why you have guys like Cruz and Aldo in the title shot. So it leaves a guy like Sterling out of the mix. They have the Yan Moraes fight booked right now, so those guys are kind of in the mix. Sandhagen's the only other guy that's out there really, like, that's not booked for a fight. So they could do Sandhagen Sterling, which probably makes more sense based on the rankings. But this could be a good fight for Sterling because it'd be like that legendary name he needs on his resume. So I'd like to see this fight. I think it makes sense. And Frankie, if he beats Sterling, he could be in a spot like Jose Aldo or Cruz where he's getting a title shot at an older age just because Cejudo wants to fight legends. And Frankie definitely qualifies as a legend as a former UFC champ and a guy that was a lot smaller than his opponents when he was beating them at lightweight. So definitely curious to see what he looks like at 135. Hasn't made that debut yet, but it'd definitely be interesting. Just seeing what other news I have out here. I should have mentioned that over at MMARings.net, I have a bunch of articles on matchmaking, so I've sent them all in. All the weight classes, I went through them all and gave like 5 or 6 matchups I'd like to be booked in each weight class. And I didn't have to look at the current matchups because honestly, they could all be scrapped at this point. So definitely go and check those out if you guys want to see some matchups I like. Also at bjpen.com, I did my top 5 submissions from UFC 11 to UFC 20. Some great submissions there, guys. So definitely go check it out. Like I've been saying the whole time, if you want to kill some time, go back and watch the old UFC fights and learn some history about the sport because that's how the sport grew up, back in the old dark ages and everything. So definitely go back and look at that stuff and definitely check out my article there with some really cool videos. I had guys like Tito Ortiz, Randy Couture, Mark Kerr, Kazushi Sakuraba, Jeremy Horn, Chuck Liddell. Like definitely check out the article, the videos. Weili Zhang finally headed back home to China. She's been in Vegas for over a month now. I think she's been there for like 2 months. She's been staying with her team. You gotta feel bad for her. I mean, she wants to go back and see her family. And here's the thing: like a lot of fighters, when they go back home, they get a hero's welcome. She was never given that after her last fight with Joanna, even though it was one of the greatest fights ever. So hopefully, she gets some sort of welcome. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that social distancing laws I'm sure they're crazy there. So that probably isn't going to happen. But it is good that she's finally home. Cejudo and Volkanovski have been going back and forth a little bit. That's a fight we could see in the future. I mean, Cejudo's got to defend his belt a few times, same with Volkanovski, but these guys are definitely two of the most well-rounded guys right now. That would be an interesting fight, maybe like 2 years down the road if they keep winning their fights. Definitely wouldn't completely write that off, especially if Cejudo wants to make history and become the first 3-division champ in UFC history. That'd be nuts. What else? John Jones and Jan Blachowicz, they've been going back and forth. Blachowicz said, "I can't wait to fist you," which is obviously hilarious. We all know what that means. And he obviously didn't, or he did, and he just wanted to joke around. But yeah, these guys are going back and forth. I mean, Dominic Reyes is out there saying John Jones, the UFC wants him to do a rematch, but I don't know. I mean, Blachowicz, he's a little bit older. I think he's 37 now. This is probably the only time he'll ever get a title shot, so I feel like they have a good chance to give it to him instead, but we'll see what happens. Kevin Lee says he's torn his ACL. He doesn't know how long he'll be out for, but we know that Kevin Lee already said he was considering retiring after the last fight with Oliveira. I don't think he's going to retire, but he'll definitely be out a little while. And John Jones and Anthony Smith have been going back and forth still, I guess setting up that future rematch between these two. But there's other guys that Jones has to fight before Smith gets a rematch, considering how the first fight went. And I think that's about it, guys. There obviously isn't a bunch their news out there right now. There are odd though for UFC 250. So if you want to go and look ahead, definitely go there. I noticed just now, I'm just looking at best fight odds. They switched the event, the Smith to Sheriff fight and Poirier Hooker. They just moved it to August. So they didn't take those lines down, but they just moved the fights. So that's interesting. But yeah, they do have UFC 250 scheduled for May 9th. Still, we don't know if it's going to happen, but it is what it is. Hopefully the card happens because I think all of us need this MMA back in our life at this point. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this coronavirus pandemic? The scary thing about this is, yeah, the first wave could go down, but then there could be a second wave killing more people. So it's pretty nuts. Last comment here, Kenshiro Rudoji. Good to hear from you, man. Hope you're staying safe. John Jones got a tickle when Jan said he wanted to have a date to fist him. Yeah, I'm sure he did. That was pretty funny. Again, Jan probably didn't know what he said, but it was pretty funny. And he also says, I think Fight Island's UFC fake news and also the COVID-19 death tolls are inflated fake news. Yeah, I don't know what the second part, the Fight Island fake news, it's possible, man. Who knows? I mean, Dana White could be pulling all of our legs. So you don't know. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. Once again, appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you guys are staying safe. Follow me on Twitter at MMADamMartin, and as always, I'm available at MMAOddsbreaker.com, BJPenn.com, and MMAratings.net. I'll be back Friday for the next edition of the podcast, guys. Until then, stay safe, keep washing your hands, social distance, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.